The war had been going on for 300 years. Every day ships exploded in space. Every week another planet burned. The galaxy was split into two giant armies that hated each other more than anything else in the universe. On one side was the hegemony of advanced species. They believed that only the strongest and smartest races should rule the galaxy. Their ships were black metal monsters covered in weapons. Their soldiers wore armor that could stop bullets, and their eyes glowed red in the dark. On the other side was the coalition of free worlds. They said every species should be free to choose their own path. Their ships were white and silver, built for speed and protection. Their soldiers fought to defend their homes and families. Between them, caught in the middle, were billions of innocent people. Farmers who just wanted to grow food, teachers who wanted to educate children, doctors who wanted to heal the sick. But the war didn't care about innocent people. It killed them anyway. In the center of all this chaos sat Earth. The humans had been traveling in space for only 200 years, which made them babies compared to other species. But they had something special. They were really good at talking to people and making them calm down. Ambassador Sarah Chen walked through the halls of the Galactic Council building. She was a small woman with kind eyes and gray hair. Her job was to speak for all humans in the galaxy. As she passed other aliens, many of them nodded with respect. Humans had earned a good reputation. The council chamber was huge. It could hold representatives from 1,000 different worlds. Today it was full. Everyone was angry and shouting at each other in dozens of different languages. The translation machines worked overtime, turning alien screams into human words. Sarah took her seat at the human table. The Earth flag hung above her head, showing a blue and green world that looked peaceful compared to all the warships outside. "The council will hear from Ambassador Chen," announced the speaker, a tall alien with purple skin and 4 arms. Sarah stood up. The room became quiet. When humans spoke at the council, everyone listened. They might not always like what humans said, but they respected it. "Thank you, Speaker Vorthen," Sarah said in her clear, steady voice. "Earth has received 47 requests this month to join the war effort. 31 from the coalition, 16 from the hegemony." Angry murmurs filled the room. Representatives from both sides looked unhappy. "Our answer remains the same," Sarah continued. "Humans choose neutrality. We will not fight in this war." General Crix of the hegemony slammed his metal fist on his table. He was a huge creature that looked like a cross between a bear and a robot. "Your species has advanced technology. Your ships are fast. Your weapons work well. You could help us end this war quickly. By joining your side?" asked Admiral Tlesh from the coalition. She was a bird-like alien with beautiful blue feathers and sharp, intelligent eyes. "The humans are too smart to fall for hegemony lies." Sarah raised her hand for silence. "We will not join either side, but we will help in other ways." She pressed a button and a holographic display appeared above the chamber. It showed numbers and pictures that made everyone gasp. Last year, human medical ships treated 2.3 million wounded soldiers. We saved coalition and hegemony lives equally. Our hospitals asked no questions about which side you fought for. The display changed to show massive space stations floating in the dark. Human refugee centers now house 847 different species from both sides of this war. We have 15 million beings living safely in human space while their homeworlds burn. Another change showed 2 aliens shaking hands while a human stood between them. Human diplomats have arranged 234 temporary ceasefires. We have negotiated prisoner exchanges. We have helped both sides talk instead of shoot, even if only for a little while. The room was completely silent now. Even the angry generals and admirals were listening carefully. "This war has killed 17 billion beings," Sarah said, her voice filled with sadness. "It has destroyed hundreds of worlds. It has separated families and turned children into orphans. We have seen enough death." She looked directly at General Crix, then at Admiral Tlesh. "Humans choose to heal instead of hurt. We choose to build instead of destroy. We choose to save lives instead of taking them." General Crix stood up. His red eyes glowed brighter when he was angry. "This is cowardice. You hide behind pretty words while real warriors fight and die." "Is healing the wounded cowardice?" Sarah asked calmly. "Is feeding hungry refugees cowardice? Is stopping fights between children cowardice? You could end this war." Admiral Tlesh said, her feathers ruffled with frustration. "If humans joined the coalition, we could defeat the hegemony in months." "And then what?" Sarah asked. You would rule the galaxy instead of them? How is that different? How does that bring back the 17 billion dead? The chamber erupted in angry voices. Aliens shouted at each other and at Sarah. Some called humans cowards. Others called them fools. A few called them worse things. Sarah waited for the noise to die down. She had been doing this job for 20 years. She had heard every insult and every threat. They didn't bother her anymore. Earth's position will not change, she said firmly. We will continue to provide medical aid to anyone who needs it. We will continue to shelter refugees from any world. We will continue to help negotiate peace whenever possible. She gathered her papers and prepared to leave. But we will never, ever take sides in a war that serves only to create more orphans and more graves. As Sarah walked out of the chamber, she passed by the memorial wall. It was covered with pictures of worlds that had been destroyed in the war. Billions of faces looked back at her. Men, women, children, and aliens of every shape and size, all dead because two giant armies couldn't stop fighting. Sarah touched one picture gently. It showed a Telari family, 2 parents and 3 small children with soft gray fur and big trusting eyes. Their world had been bombed 6 months ago. Only the youngest child had survived, and she was now living in a human refugee center. We remember you, Sarah whispered to the picture. And we will never let this happen to anyone else if we can help it. What Sarah didn't say, what no human ever said in public, was that they were keeping careful records of everything. Every species they helped told them about weapons and tactics. Every wounded soldier revealed information about battle plans. Every diplomat they negotiated with showed them how their enemies thought. Humans were learning. They were watching. They were preparing, but they still hoped they would never need to use what they were learning. They still believed that someday, somehow, the galaxy would choose peace over war. They still believed that talking was better than fighting, that healing was better than hurting, that building was better than destroying. They would keep believing that right up until someone made the biggest mistake in galactic history. Right up until someone decided that human compassion was a weakness to be exploited instead of a strength to be respected. Right up until someone attacked the innocent people under human protection. When that day came, the galaxy would learn that there was something much more dangerous than human warriors. They would learn what happened when you made human healers angry. Dr. Elena Vasquez had never wanted to be famous. She just wanted to help people who were hurt and scared. But somehow she had become one of the most important humans in the galaxy. Elena ran Haven Station, the biggest refugee center in human space. The massive structure floated in the darkness between stars, far from any battlefields. It was shaped like a giant wheel, spinning slowly to create gravity for the people inside. Haven Station was home to over 2 million refugees from 847 different worlds. There were tall, thin Altarians who needed cold air to breathe. There were small, fuzzy Kreelings who were afraid of loud noises. There were crystalline Vorthak who ate minerals instead of food. Elena made sure they all had what they needed to survive. Every morning, Elena walked through the station's many levels. The residential areas were like small cities with parks and schools and shops. Refugee children played games together, laughing in dozens of different languages. Their parents worked in the gardens or taught classes or helped maintain the station. "Good morning, Dr. Elena," called out Zara, a young Telari girl with soft gray fur. She was only 8 years old, but she had seen her entire family killed when the hegemony bombed her homeworld. Now she lived with a human family who loved her like their own daughter. "Good morning, little star," Elena replied, using the Telari word for precious child. "Are you ready for school today?" "Yes. Teacher Martinez is showing us how to grow earth vegetables. I want to learn how to make tomatoes." Elena smiled and continued her walk. In the medical center, her doctors were treating wounded soldiers from both sides of the war. A coalition pilot with a broken arm sat next to a hegemony engineer with burns on his face. They ignored each other, but they were both receiving the same excellent care. "How are our patients today?" Elena asked Dr. Kim, her head of surgery. "Stable. The coalition pilot will be ready to go home tomorrow. The hegemony soldier needs another week, but his burns are healing well." Elena nodded. This was how things should be. Politics and war stopped at the door of her medical center. Inside, there were only people who needed help. That afternoon, Elena was in her office reviewing supply requests when her communication system started beeping frantically. The emergency tone made her heart race. Elena here. What's wrong? Doctor, this is traffic control. We have 20 hegemony warships approaching the station. They're not responding to our identification signals. Elena's blood turned cold. Haven Station was marked clearly as a neutral humanitarian facility. It was protected under galactic law. No one was supposed to attack a refugee center. Put me through to their commander, Elena ordered. A few seconds later, a harsh voice filled her office. This is Admiral Cathera of the Hegemony Third Fleet. You will surrender your station immediately. Admiral, this is Dr. Elena Vasquez, Director of Haven Station. We are a neutral humanitarian facility protected under the Refuge Accords. We house over 2 million civilian refugees, including children. Your neutrality is a lie, Admiral Cathera snarled. You harbor coalition spies and sympathizers. You provide aid that helps our enemies continue fighting. This ends now. Elena's hands were shaking, but her voice remained steady. Admiral, we treat all beings equally regardless of their politics. We have never taken sides in this war. Please scan our station. You will see we have no weapons, no military installations. We are only a refugee center. You are a tool of coalition propaganda. Your so-called mercy makes our enemies think they can hide behind human protection. Today, the galaxy learns that choosing the wrong side has consequences. Through her office window, Elena could see the hegemony ships moving into attack formation. Their black hulls gleamed with weapon ports. These were warships built for destroying planets, not talking to refugees. Admiral, please, Elena begged. There are children here, families, innocent people from hundreds of worlds. Many of them are fleeing from coalition territory. They're not your enemies. Innocence is a luxury this galaxy can no longer afford, Admiral Cathera replied coldly. You have 30 seconds to evacuate your command staff. Then we open fire. Elena activated the station's emergency system. Alarms began blaring throughout Haven Station. Her voice echoed through every corridor and room. This is Dr. Vasquez. All residents proceed immediately to emergency shelters. This is not a drill. All staff report to evacuation stations. Families with children go to the innermost shelters first. But Elena didn't go to the shelters. Instead, she ran to the medical center where her most critical patients were being treated. If she was going to die, she would die doing her job. Dr. Kim found her there, trying to move wounded patients to safer locations. Elena, we have to go. The transport ships are ready. Not without the patients, Elena said firmly. Help me get them to the emergency medical bay. It has better shielding. The first missile hit the station's outer ring. The explosion shook the entire structure. Lights flickered and went out in sections. Elena could hear people screaming in fear. More missiles followed. The station's hull began to crack and breach. Air rushed out into space with a horrible whistling sound. Emergency barriers slammed shut to prevent complete decompression, but they also trapped people in damaged sections. Elena and her medical team worked frantically to save as many people as possible. They moved patients, carried children, and guided families to emergency shelters. But the attacks were too intense and too widespread. A group of Kreelings, the small fuzzy aliens who were afraid of loud noises, had huddled together in terror as explosions echoed through the station. Elena found them in a damaged corridor, crying and calling for their parents. Come with me, little ones, Elena said gently, scooping up as many as she could carry. We'll find somewhere safe. She was carrying 6 Kreeling children toward an emergency shelter when the final barrage hit. The medical center took a direct hit. The blast threw Elena and the children against a wall. When the rescue teams found them 3 hours later, Elena was still holding the Kreeling children in her arms. She had used her own body to shield them from the debris and radiation. The children were alive. Elena was not. The attack on Haven Station lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the beautiful wheel-shaped refuge was a twisted wreck of metal and broken dreams. Of the 2 million beings who had called it home, only 300,000 survived. Admiral Cathera surveyed the destruction from her flagship bridge. Send a message to all coalition worlds, she ordered. This is what happens to those who aid our enemies. Neutrality is dead, but Cathera had made a terrible mistake. She thought she was sending a message of strength and fear. Instead, she had just signed her own death warrant and doomed her entire civilization. The news of Haven Station's destruction reached Earth 12 hours later. Ambassador Sarah Chen was in her office when the report came in. She read it 3 times before the words really sank in. 7 million dead, including Dr. Elena Vasquez, who had dedicated her life to helping others, including thousands of children who had never hurt anyone, including refugees who had already lost everything once and were just trying to rebuild their lives. Sarah walked to her window and looked out at the peaceful earth below. Blue oceans, white clouds, green continents full of life and hope. For 300 years, humans had watched the galaxy tear itself apart. They had stayed neutral. They had helped everyone equally. They had believed that mercy and compassion could eventually win over hatred and violence. They had been wrong. Sarah activated her communication system and sent a message that would change galactic history. Emergency session of the Human Council. Priority Alpha. All representatives return to Earth immediately. The age of neutrality is over. In refugee centers across human space, the survivors of Haven Station told their stories. They described Dr. Elena's final moments, how she had died protecting alien children who weren't even her own species. They talked about the medical staff who had stayed behind to help patients instead of saving themselves. Human military commanders, who had spent decades planning for a war they hoped would never come, opened sealed orders and began activating assets that the galaxy didn't know existed. Admiral Cathera had thought she was teaching humans about the cost of neutrality. Instead, she had just taught them something much more dangerous. She had taught them about the cost of mercy. Captain Marcus Torres was eating breakfast when his ship's communication system started screaming. The UES Defiance had been patrolling the outer edges of human space, doing what everyone thought was peaceful exploration work. But Marcus knew better. The Defiance wasn't an exploration ship. It was a weapon disguised as a peaceful vessel. "Captain, to the bridge," came the urgent call. Marcus dropped his coffee and ran. When he arrived, his crew was staring at their screens with shocked faces. Lieutenant Park, his communication officer, turned to him with wide eyes. "Sir, we just received a Priority Alpha message from Earth Command. Operation Righteous Fury is active." Marcus felt his stomach drop. They had all hoped this day would never come. For decades, humans had prepared for war while praying they would never need to fight. Now someone had forced their hand. "Show me the message," Marcus ordered. The words appeared on his screen and they made his hands shake with anger. "All human assets. This is Earth Command. Haven Station has been destroyed by hegemony forces under Admiral Cathera. 1.7 million civilians dead, including Dr. Elena Vasquez and thousands of children. Operation Righteous Fury is now active. Rules of engagement. Any hegemony military vessel or installation is now a legitimate target. Priority 1. Rescue survivors from Haven Station debris field. Priority 2. Make them pay for every innocent life they took." Marcus looked around his bridge. His crew was waiting for orders, but he could see the rage in their eyes. These people had joined what they thought was a peaceful exploration mission. Now they were about to become instruments of war. Helm, set course for Haven Station coordinates, maximum speed. Communications. Send a message to all human vessels in the area. Tell them we're going to bring our people home. Aye, Captain. Course laid in. Weapons, begin system activation. Lieutenant Hayes looked confused. "Sir? This is an exploration vessel. We don't have weapons." Marcus smiled grimly and entered his command codes into the ship's computer. Computer, activate Protocol 7. Authorization Torres Alpha 77. Protocol 7 activated. Converting to combat configuration. The bridge began to change around them. Panels slid away to reveal weapon controls. Peaceful exploration sensors converted into targeting systems. The ship's elegant diplomatic exterior started retracting to show the heavy armor and missile batteries hidden underneath. In 5 minutes, the UES Defiance transformed from a friendly exploration ship into a battlecruiser that could fight anything in space. "Holy hell," whispered Lieutenant Hayes. "How long has the ship been able to do this?" "Since the day we launched," Marcus replied. "Every human ship can do this. Every space station, every colony, every peaceful installation. We've been preparing for this war for 50 years. Across human space, the same transformation was happening everywhere. Medical stations revealed hidden missile batteries. Refugee transports deployed fighter squadrons. Even the small courier ships that delivered mail carried enough firepower to level a city. But the humans weren't just activating weapons. They were activating something much more powerful: information. For 3 centuries, humans had been the galaxy's healers and diplomats. Every wounded soldier they had treated had told them about battle tactics. Every refugee they had sheltered had described enemy installations. Every peace negotiation had revealed how their opponents thought and planned. Humans knew where every hegemony base was located. They knew which supply routes were critical. They knew the psychological profiles of every major commander. Most importantly, they knew exactly which hegemony leaders had ordered attacks on civilians. The first battle happened near the Proxima relay, a major shipping route that connected dozens of star systems. Admiral Kithera was leading her fleet home after destroying Haven Station, probably expecting praise for her decisive action. Instead, she found a single human ship waiting for her. Hegemony vessel. This is Captain Sarah Kim of the UES Retribution. You are ordered to surrender immediately. Admiral Kithera laughed. Her fleet included 20 warships, including her massive flagship that could destroy a moon. The human ship looked tiny in comparison. Foolish human. You dare threaten the Third Fleet with a single vessel? I will add your wreckage to my victory collection. Admiral Kithera, you are charged with war crimes against civilian populations, specifically the murder of 1.7 million innocent beings on Haven Station. This is your only chance to surrender. I am a war hero. I eliminated a coalition stronghold. Captain Kim's voice turned ice cold. You murdered children, Admiral. You killed doctors and teachers and refugees who never hurt anyone. You destroyed a hospital and bombed a school, and now you're going to pay for every single life you took. The hegemony fleet opened fire first. 20 ships launched everything they had at the lone human vessel. Missiles filled the space between them like deadly fireworks. But something impossible happened. The human ship didn't just survive the attack, it seemed to absorb it. Energy shields that shouldn't have existed deflected the missiles. Armor plating that was stronger than anything in the galaxy shrugged off direct hits. Then the UES Retribution fired back. The weapons that emerged from the human ship were like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. They combined the best technology from every species, improved and perfected by human engineering. Energy beams that could cut through the strongest hulls. Missiles that could think and adapt to enemy defenses. Projectile weapons that hit with the force of falling asteroids. Admiral Kithera's flagship, the pride of the hegemony fleet, was crippled in the first volley. Her shields failed, her engines died, and her weapon systems exploded. In 30 seconds, her mighty warship had become a floating wreck. How? She gasped as emergency lights flickered around her damaged bridge. How is this possible? Captain Kim's reply came through the static. Every species you've terrorized taught us something new, Admiral. Every refugee we sheltered shared their knowledge. Every wounded soldier we healed told us about your weaknesses. We've been learning from everyone you've hurt for 300 years. The battle lasted 7 minutes. When it was over, 17 hegemony ships were destroyed or disabled. Only 3 vessels escaped, and only because Captain Kim let them go. Tell the galaxy what you saw here, she transmitted to the fleeing ships. Tell them what happens when you murder innocent people under human protection. Tell them the age of mercy is over. The news of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light speed. The mighty hegemony Third Fleet, which had terrorized dozens of worlds, had been crushed by a single human ship. But that wasn't the most frightening part. The most frightening part was that humans had thousands of ships just like it. General Washington, the supreme commander of human military operations, stood in Earth's war room surrounded by holographic displays. Each display showed the position of human forces throughout the galaxy. 10,000 ships that the galaxy had never known existed. Space stations that were actually fortresses. Colonies that were really military bases. For 300 years, General Washington said, speaking to the galaxy through every communication channel, we have watched you tear each other apart. We have treated your wounded, sheltered your refugees, and buried your dead. We hoped that someday, somehow, you would choose peace over war. The displays behind her showed pictures from Haven Station, the children's playground, the hospital where Dr. Elena had worked, the gardens where refugee families had tried to build new lives. You chose to target innocents under our protection. You chose to murder children and doctors and teachers. You chose to bomb hospitals and schools and refugee shelters. The pictures changed to show Admiral Kithera's fleet attacking the defenseless station. You have awakened, something that preferred to remain asleep. You have turned healers into warriors. You have made us choose between our principles and our people. The final image showed Dr. Elena Vasquez holding the creeling children, protecting them with her own body even as she died. When we were forced to choose, we chose our people. We chose justice. We chose to make sure this never happens again. General Washington looked directly into the camera. Every being responsible for war crimes will be brought to justice. Every civilian killer will answer for their actions. Every child murderer will face the consequences of their choices. The transmission ended, but the message was clear. Humanity was done being neutral. They were done being patient. They were done watching innocents die while politicians played games with lives. The sleeping giant had awakened, and its first emotion was not fear or excitement. It was righteous fury. The Hegemony Council met in emergency session on their capital world. The massive chamber was filled with representatives from the most powerful military species in the galaxy. These were beings who had conquered hundreds of worlds and ruled over trillions of subjects. But today they looked worried. High Commander Vex, a towering reptilian creature with scales like black armor, slammed his clawed fist on the council table. "How is this possible? 20 ships defeated by one human vessel? Our intelligence said they had no military capability." War Minister Krall, whose cybernetic implants made him more machine than alien, pulled up holographic displays. "Our analysis shows that human exploration ships were actually disguised warships. Every medical station was a hidden fortress. Every diplomatic vessel carried enough weapons to destroy a city. For how long?" demanded Admiral Thex, her insectoid features clicking with agitation. "How long have they been preparing for war while pretending to be peaceful?" "Based on the technology we observed, at least 50 years. Possibly longer." The council chamber fell silent. 50 years of preparation. 50 years of pretending to be harmless while building the most advanced military force in galactic history. The humans had played the longest game anyone could imagine. High Commander Vex stood up, his massive frame casting shadows across the chamber. "Then we crush them before they become a real threat. Launch the Grand Fleet, every ship, every soldier, every weapon we have. Show them what real military power looks like." 3 days later, the largest military force in galactic history assembled at staging point 7. Over 1 million hegemony ships, ranging from small fighters to massive dreadnoughts that could crack planets in half. The fleet stretched across space for thousands of kilometers, a wall of metal and weapons that had never been defeated. At the center of this armada was the HSS Dominator, a super dreadnought the size of a small moon. High Commander Vex stood on its bridge, surrounded by his most trusted officers. This was the ship that had conquered the Altarian Empire, the vessel that had brought the Silicon Lords to their knees. "Begin the advance," Vex ordered. "Target human space. Objective: total annihilation." The great fleet moved toward human territory like a storm of metal and death. As they traveled, hegemony propaganda broadcasts filled the communication channels. "Citizens of the galaxy," announced the official war speaker, "the hegemony moves to eliminate the human threat. These deceptive creatures have hidden their true nature behind masks of mercy and compassion. They will be destroyed for the safety of all civilized species." But as the hegemony fleet advanced, something strange began to happen. They started losing ships, not in big battles, not in glorious combat. Ships just disappeared. A supply convoy would leave a base with 50 vessels and arrive at their destination with 30. A patrol squadron would report everything normal, then never report again. Cargo ships carrying ammunition and food would vanish without even sending a distress signal. "Where are our ships going?" demanded Admiral Thex during a fleet meeting. Intelligence Officer Zarn, a pale creature with too many eyes, consulted his reports. "We believe the humans are using stealth technology combined with precise strike tactics. They're not engaging our main fleet. They're cutting our supply lines," High Commander Vex growled. "Coward tactics. When we reach human space, we'll show them how real warriors fight." But the humans weren't fighting like warriors. They were fighting like surgeons. Captain Elena Rodriguez commanded the UES Scalpel, one of hundreds of human ships conducting what they called precision strikes against hegemony supply lines. Her crew had spent years studying hegemony logistics, learning exactly which supply routes were critical and which could be disrupted for maximum effect. "Target acquired," reported Lieutenant Zhang from the weapons station. "Hegemony ammunition convoy, 50 ships heading for staging point 7. "Any civilian vessels in the convoy?" Captain Rodriguez asked. "Negative. All military transports." "Then light them up." The Scalpel emerged from behind an asteroid field and opened fire. But these weren't random attacks. Every shot was calculated to disable rather than destroy. Engines were crippled. Weapon systems were knocked out. Communication arrays were destroyed. Within minutes, 50 hegemony ships were floating helplessly in space. Then something happened that shocked the hegemony crews. The humans sent boarding parties to evacuate them. Hegemony personnel, this is Commander Torres of the UES Scalpel. We are here to evacuate you before your ship's life support fails. Anyone who cooperates will be treated as prisoners of war under galactic law. The confused hegemony soldiers found themselves being rescued by the same humans who had just disabled their ships. They were given medical treatment, food, and safe transportation to prisoner facilities that were cleaner and more comfortable than their own military barracks. "I don't understand," one captured hegemony officer said to his human guard. "Why are you helping us? We're your enemies." The human guard, a young woman with kind eyes, smiled sadly. "Because you're people. Because this war isn't your fault. Because someone has to remember that even enemies deserve basic dignity." This pattern repeated across the galaxy. Human forces would strike with devastating precision, then immediately provide humanitarian aid to their defeated opponents. Enemy soldiers were treated better as prisoners than they had been as active military personnel. Wounded hegemony troops received the same medical care as human casualties. The psychological effect was devastating. Hegemony soldiers began to question why they were fighting beings who showed them more compassion than their own commanders did. Meanwhile, the human intelligence network that had been built over centuries of refugee work was providing perfect battle information. Every hegemony base had former refugees who remembered which humans had saved their lives. Every hegemony world had civilians who trusted human doctors, more than their own government officials. General Patricia Washington reviewed the battle reports from her command center on Earth. The holographic displays showed hegemony territory, but now it was marked with red zones where their supply lines had been severed, green zones where human forces controlled key positions, and blue zones where local populations were providing intelligence to human forces. "Status report," she ordered. Colonel Martinez, her chief intelligence officer, pulled up the strategic overview. Hegemony forces have lost 60% of their supply capacity. Their main fleet is still advancing, but they're running low on ammunition and fuel. More importantly, we're seeing massive defections from their support personnel. Defections? Yes, ma'am. Cargo pilots, medical staff, engineering crews. They're abandoning hegemony forces and seeking asylum with our units. Our psychological warfare division says it's because we're treating prisoners better than the hegemony treats its own people. General Washington nodded. Any word on High Commander Vex's main fleet? They'll reach the Proxima system in 6 hours. 1 million ships fully armed and very angry. Good. It's time to end this. In space near Proxima, Captain David Chen waited aboard the UES Vindication. He was Ambassador Sarah Chen's younger brother, and like her, he believed in protecting innocent people. But unlike her, he had chosen the military path. His fleet numbered only 3,000 ships. Against 1 million hegemony vessels, it should have been a massacre. The math was simple. The humans were outnumbered more than 300 to 1. But David wasn't worried. He had something the hegemony didn't. He knew exactly what they were going to do. For 3 centuries, humans had been studying hegemony battle tactics. They knew that Vex would attack in a standard wall formation, using overwhelming firepower to crush resistance. They knew he would target what appeared to be the strongest human ships first. They knew he would expect a traditional battle between opposing fleets. David had no intention of giving him a traditional battle. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Execute Plan Nightfall. Show them what happens when you threaten our families. The Battle of Proxima was about to begin, and it would change the course of galactic history, not because of the ships that fought, but because of the principles they fought for. The hegemony fought for conquest and domination. The humans fought for justice and protection of the innocent. In the end, that would make all the difference. The Battle of Proxima began at dawn, Galactic Standard Time. High Commander Vex stood on the bridge of his super dreadnought, watching as his million-ship fleet formed into perfect attack formation. The humans waited ahead of them with only 3,000 vessels. To Vex, it looked like the end of a minor inconvenience. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Show these pretend warriors what real military power looks like." But Admiral David Chen had no intention of fighting a traditional battle. As the hegemony fleet advanced, The human ships scattered in all directions like leaves in the wind. Some dove toward the nearby star, others raced toward the asteroid fields. A few even seemed to retreat entirely, cowards. Vex roared. They run from honorable combat. That's when the real battle began. The human ships that had retreated toward the star suddenly reversed course, using the star's gravity to slingshot back at incredible speed. The ones in the asteroid field started pushing space rocks toward the hegemony formation. The scattered vessels began coordinated strikes against the fleet's flanks and rear. But the most devastating attack came from an unexpected source, the hegemony's own ships. "Sir," called out Communications Officer Rill. "Our formation is breaking apart. Ships are colliding with each other." Vex stared in horror as his perfectly organized fleet began to destroy itself. Ships crashed into their neighbors. Weapons fired accidentally into friendly vessels. The tight formation that was supposed to be their strength became a death trap. "How is this possible?" Vex demanded. Intelligence Officer Zarn was frantically checking his instruments. "The humans are using some kind of electronic warfare. They're overriding our navigation systems, our communications, even our weapons targeting." What Zarn didn't understand was that humans had been studying hegemony technology for decades. Every wounded soldier they had treated had ships with computer systems that could be analyzed. Every refugee they had sheltered brought technical knowledge with them. Every diplomatic meeting involved scanning and recording everything they encountered. Humans knew hegemony computer systems better than the hegemony did. They had found every weakness, every backdoor, every flaw in the programming. Now they were using that knowledge to turn the enemy fleet against itself. Admiral Chen watched the chaos from his command ship. "All units begin Phase 2. Target their command vessels but leave escape routes open. We want prisoners, not massacres." The human ships moved with surgical precision through the confused hegemony fleet. They struck at command ships, communication relays, and coordination centers. Within an hour, the million-ship armada had become a million individual vessels with no way to work together. "High Commander, Vex's super dreadnought took a direct hit from a human missile that somehow passed through all their shields." The massive ship shuddered and began to list to one side. "Damage report," Vex shouted over the alarms. "Engines at 30%. Weapons offline. Life support failing on decks 12 through 40. Through the smoke and sparks on his bridge, Vex saw something that made his blood freeze. A single human ship was approaching his massive vessel. It was tiny compared to the super dreadnought, but somehow it looked more dangerous than anything he had ever faced. "Hegemony Vessel Dominator. This is Admiral David Chen of the United Earth Navy. High Commander Vex, you are under arrest for war crimes against civilian populations. Surrender now and your crew will be treated according to galactic law." Vex activated his personal communicator. "I am High Commander Vex. I have conquered 100 worlds. I will not surrender to a single human ship. Commander, your fleet is defeated. Your engines are dead. Your weapons are offline. This battle is over. Don't make us board your ship by force." Vex looked around his ruined bridge. Half his officers were dead or wounded. Emergency lights flickered in the smoke. His mighty fleet was scattered and helpless. In one day, the most powerful military force in galactic history had been reduced to space debris and drifting hulks. "How?" he whispered. "How did you defeat us so easily?" Admiral Chen's voice came through the static, calm and sad. "Because you forgot something important, Commander. We didn't start this war. We didn't want this war. But when you forced us to fight, you gave us 300 years of preparation time. Impossible. Our intelligence said you had no military capability. Your intelligence was right. We didn't. But we had something better. We had 3 centuries of wounded soldiers telling us about your tactics. We had millions of refugees sharing their technical knowledge. We had thousands of diplomatic meetings where we studied your psychology and your weaknesses." The truth hit Vex like a physical blow. The refugees, the medical treatment, the peace negotiations, all of it was intelligence gathering. "No, Commander. All of it was genuine compassion. We really did want to help people. We really did try to stop this war through peaceful means, but we also learned everything we could, just in case someone like you decided that mercy was weakness." Admiral Chen's ship moved closer to the disabled super dreadnought. "You attacked a refugee station full of children. You murdered doctors and teachers and families who never hurt anyone. You thought human compassion made us soft." Vex could see human boarding pods approaching his ship. Small, fast craft carrying soldiers who would capture him and put him on trial for his crimes. "You were wrong, Commander. Human compassion didn't make us weak. It made us absolutely determined to ensure that what happened at Haven Station never happens again. The boarding action was swift and professional. Human soldiers moved through the super dreadnought, securing prisoners and providing medical aid to the wounded. They showed the same care for injured hegemony troops that they showed for their own people. High Commander Vex was taken to a clean, comfortable detention cell aboard a human ship. The cell had books, art supplies, and a small window looking out at the stars. It was nicer than his own quarters had been aboard the Dominator. "I don't understand," he said to his human guard. "Why are you treating us so well? We tried to destroy you." The guard, a young man with tired but kind eyes, sat down across from him. "Because someone has to break the cycle, sir. Someone has to show that there's a better way than endless revenge and hatred. But we attacked your people. We killed your civilians. Yes, you did. And you'll face trial for those crimes. But while you're waiting for justice, you'll be treated with the same dignity we would want for our own captured soldiers." Vex stared out the window at the debris field that had once been his mighty fleet. "Your species is very strange. Maybe. But our strangeness just conquered the most powerful military force in galactic history." The news of the hegemony's defeat spread across the galaxy faster than light. The coalition forces, who had been fighting a losing war for decades, suddenly found themselves facing a broken and scattered enemy. Hegemony worlds began surrendering rather than face the systematic efficiency of human military operations. But the humans didn't conquer territory or demand tribute. Instead, they did something that shocked everyone. They immediately began providing humanitarian aid to defeated hegemony worlds. Human medical ships arrived at damaged planets to treat the wounded. Human engineering crews helped repair destroyed infrastructure. Human food convoys fed populations that had been cut off from supplies during the fighting. Ambassador Sarah Chen, who had spent so many years trying to prevent this war, now found herself managing the peace. She stood once again before the Galactic Council, but this time the chamber was quiet and respectful. "The war is over," she announced. "The hegemony has surrendered unconditionally. Their military leaders will face trial for war crimes. Their territories will be administered by joint coalition human peacekeeping forces until stable governments can be established." She paused, looking out at the assembled representatives from hundreds of worlds. "But humanity's goal was never conquest or revenge. Our goal was to ensure that innocent beings never again face the kind of brutality that destroyed Haven Station." The holographic display behind her showed the new galactic map. Instead of two warring alliances, there were now dozens of independent systems connected by trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. The age of giant military empires was over. Every world will be free to choose its own government. Every species will have the right to self-determination. And every being will be protected by laws that actually mean something. She touched a control, and the display changed to show a new space station under construction. It was larger and more beautiful than Haven Station had been. But it served the same purpose. A safe haven for refugees and a symbol of hope. "We named this new station after Dr. Elena Vasquez, who died protecting children who weren't even her own species. Her sacrifice and the sacrifice of 1.7 million innocent beings will never be forgotten." The chamber erupted in applause, but Sarah raised her hand for silence. "Let me be very clear about something. Humanity did not enjoy this war. We did not celebrate our victories. Every hegemony soldier who died was someone's child, someone's parent, someone's friend. War is always a tragedy, even when it's necessary." She looked directly at the few remaining hegemony representatives. "But when you target innocents under our protection, when you murder children and doctors and teachers, when you turn compassion into a—"
Commander Alex Riley stood at the viewing window of Earth Defense Station Alpha, watching the stars. The coffee in his mug had gone cold hours ago. For 6 years, he had commanded this outpost near Jupiter's orbit, and most days were quiet. Today was not one of those days. "Commander, we're picking up an unusual signal," said Officer Donna Martinez, her voice tense. "It doesn't match any known pattern in our database." Riley walked to her station and looked at the display. The signal pulsed in a complex rhythm that seemed deliberate, intelligent. "How far?" he asked. "That's the strange part, sir. It's coming from just beyond Ganymede's orbit. Something is out there, and it's close." Humanity had been traveling through space for only 50 years. They had built colonies on Mars, research stations on the moons of Jupiter, and mining operations in the asteroid belt. But they had never found signs of other intelligent life. Until now. Alert Earth Command. Set condition yellow throughout the station, Riley ordered. And get me a visual. The station's most powerful telescopes turned toward the signal source. On the main screen, a shape appeared against the blackness of space. It was sleek, silver, and unlike any spacecraft humans had built. Its surface seemed to flow like liquid metal, with no visible engines or weapons. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission. They're requesting to speak with us." In English, said Communications Officer Ben Garcia, his eyes wide. Riley took a deep breath. Put it through. The screen flickered, and Riley found himself looking at a humanoid figure with pale blue skin and large almond-shaped eyes. She wore what appeared to be a formal uniform of some kind, with symbols Riley didn't recognize. "Greetings, Earth Defense Station. I am Ambassador Lyra of the Telari Confederation. I come with urgent news for your planet's leadership." Riley kept his voice steady. "This is Commander Alex Riley. Your presence is unexpected, Ambassador. We were unaware of other intelligent life in our region of space." The alien smiled, an expression surprisingly similar to a human's. "That was by design, Commander. Your world has been under observation for centuries. The Galactic Council established a non-contact policy regarding Earth long ago. However, circumstances have changed. May I request permission to dock with your station? What I must discuss cannot wait, and should not be transmitted openly." Riley hesitated. First contact situations were covered in training, but no one had expected them to actually happen. "Stand by, Ambassador," he said, then muted the transmission. "Sir, what do we do?" asked Martinez. "This isn't in the protocol manual." Riley activated the secure line to Earth Command. After a brief, tense conversation with the Secretary of Defense, he received his orders. "Ambassador Lyra," Riley said, reopening the channel. "You are cleared to dock at Bay 3. A small diplomatic team will meet you there." 4 hours later, Riley sat across from the alien ambassador in the station's conference room. She had brought no weapons and had submitted to a basic scan that showed she was indeed biological, though her internal structure was different from a human's. "Earth sits at a crucial juncture in space," Lyra explained, displaying a holographic map of stars Riley didn't recognize. "A war has begun between powerful forces. The Galactic Council has maintained a protective quarantine around your solar system for reasons I am not authorized to fully explain. That protection is failing." "Why come to us now?" Riley asked. Lyra's expression grew worried. "Because the Council is in panic, Commander. They fear what will happen if Earth becomes involved in this war. Are we in danger?" "Everyone is in danger," she said. "But the Council's message is clear. Earth must be kept out of this war, at all costs. I need to speak with your world leaders immediately." Riley watched her carefully. She seemed genuinely afraid, not of humans, but of something else. "I've been ordered to escort you to Earth," he said. "We leave in 1 hour." As they prepared for departure, Riley noticed Lyra sending encrypted transmissions back to her ship. She caught him watching and quickly said, "The Council is waiting for updates. They are anxious about this meeting." Riley nodded, but a feeling of unease settled in his stomach. Whatever had the Galactic Council so worried about Earth's involvement in their war, he suspected they weren't telling the whole truth. The United Earth headquarters in Geneva gleamed in the morning sunlight. Commander Riley stood behind Ambassador Lyra as they were escorted through security checkpoints. He noticed how the alien diplomat kept looking around, studying everything with a mixture of curiosity and worry. "Your architecture is quite beautiful," she said softly. "So different from our structures." Riley nodded. This building was designed to represent unity among all Earth nations. It was built 50 years ago, after the climate wars ended. Lyra's eyes widened slightly. "You had global wars and survived as a unified species. Interesting." Before Riley could ask what she meant, The doors to the main chamber opened. Inside, President Olivia Bennett and the 12 members of the Security Council waited. Their faces showed a mix of wonder and caution at the sight of the blue-skinned alien. "Ambassador Lyra," President Bennett said, rising from her seat, "welcome to Earth. I understand you bring urgent news." Lyra bowed slightly. "Thank you for receiving me, President Bennett. What I must share will change how you view the universe forever." A technician set up Lyra's holographic projector in the center of the room. The lights dimmed, and suddenly the chamber was filled with stars, planets, and glowing lines connecting them. "This is our galaxy," Lyra explained. "There are over 200 intelligent species spread across thousands of worlds. For the past 3,000 years, most have lived in relative peace under the guidance of the Galactic Council." The hologram zoomed in on a specific region. 2 large areas lit up in different colors, one red, one blue. 2 weeks ago, war broke out between the Vortian Empire and the Meridian Alliance. Both are powerful, spanning hundreds of star systems. The Council has tried to contain the conflict, but it's spreading rapidly. President Bennett leaned forward. "This is all fascinating, Ambassador, but what does it have to do with Earth? We haven't even traveled beyond our own solar system yet." Lyra touched the controls, and the hologram shifted to show Earth's solar system. A faint bubble surrounded it. "Your world sits at a strategic point between the warring factions. The only reason they haven't noticed you yet is because of this. A quarantine zone established around your solar system over 500 years ago." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "You've been keeping us isolated. Why?" asked Defense Secretary Alan Moss, his voice sharp. Lyra's expression grew uncomfortable. "That's complicated. What matters now is that the quarantine is failing as the war expands. The Council sent me to deliver a clear message. Earth must remain neutral and invisible at all costs." President Bennett stood up and walked around the table. "You travel across space to tell us to hide. I think we deserve to know why the Council seems so afraid of our involvement." Lyra looked down for a moment, then met the President's gaze. "Very well. The truth is that humans possess certain characteristics that have the Council deeply concerned." "What characteristics?" Riley asked from his position near the wall. "Your species evolved differently than most intelligent life," Lyra said. "Most sentient beings in the galaxy developed intelligence as a way to avoid conflict and cooperate. Humans developed intelligence while remaining." She searched for the word. "Competitive, aggressive, adaptable to violence in ways most species are not." Council member Rita Johnson scoffed. "So we're too violent for your galactic community. We've spent centuries working to overcome our violent tendencies." "That's just it," Lyra replied. "You recognize your capacity for war as a problem to solve. You study it, perfect it, even as you claim to reject it. Most species in the galaxy never developed military strategy beyond the most basic concepts. Humans write thousands of books on warfare. You train for it constantly." President Bennett crossed her arms. "And you think if we get involved in this war, we'll make it worse? The Council's simulations suggest that human involvement would change the nature of the conflict entirely. You might even win, despite your technological disadvantage. That possibility terrifies everyone." Riley watched the faces of Earth's leaders. Some looked offended, others intrigued. President Bennett just looked thoughtful. "Thank you for your honesty, Ambassador," she finally said. "We'll need time to discuss this." As the meeting adjourned, Riley caught Lyra looking at him strangely. "What is it?" he asked. "I studied your history," she said quietly. "No other species goes from first flight to landing on their moon in just 66 years. What will you do with the stars, I wonder?" Captain Samantha Reeves stood on the bridge of the survey ship Eagle, staring at the floating debris on the main screen. The Eagle was mapping the outer edges of the Kuiper Belt when they had detected unusual metal fragments that didn't match any known Earth materials. "What do you think, Dr. Ward?" she asked her science officer. Nathan Ward adjusted his glasses and studied the sensor readings. Definitely not one of ours, Captain. The alloy composition is like nothing in our database. And look at these energy readings. Whatever this was, it used a power source far beyond our technology. Samantha tapped her fingers on the console. Earth Command had issued clear orders after Ambassador Lyra's visit. Avoid all contact with alien vessels and report any sightings immediately. But the scientist in her couldn't just ignore this discovery. Take us closer, she decided, but maintain alert status. If anything moves out there, we jump to safety immediately. As the Eagle approached the debris field, they saw it wasn't just random fragments. It was the remains of a battle. 2 different types of ships had fought here, leaving wreckage scattered across 5 kilometers of space. Captain, I'm detecting a power signature, called out Ensign Peter Kim from the sensor station. It's faint, but it's there. Coordinates uploading to your display now. Samantha saw it. A small craft, mostly intact, drifting among the debris. It looked like an escape pod. Is anyone alive in there? She asked. Ward ran a scan. 1 life sign, very weak. Captain, if someone's in there, they won't last long. That pod's life support is failing. Samantha knew the rules. She also knew she couldn't leave someone to die if she could help them. Bring it into Cargo Bay 2. Dr. Ward, meet me there with a medical team. Full quarantine protocols. 30 minutes later, Samantha watched as Ward carefully opened the alien escape pod. Inside was a humanoid figure wearing what looked like battle armor. The alien's skin was pale gold, with ridge-like patterns on its face. It was badly injured, with blue blood seeping from wounds in its chest and leg. He's dying, Ward said, scanning the alien with medical equipment. His biology is different from ours, but similar enough that I might be able to stabilize him. Do what you can, Samantha ordered. 2 hours later, the alien was in the ship's medical bay, connected to machines adapted to keep him alive. Ward had worked miracles with limited knowledge of alien physiology. His armor has markings that might be military rank, Ward explained. Based on Ambassador Lyra's briefing, I think he's from the Meridian Alliance. Suddenly, the alien's eyes fluttered open. They were bright violet, with vertical pupils. He looked around wildly, then focused on Samantha and Ward. Terror filled his face. Where am I? He asked in a raspy voice, speaking perfect English to their surprise. You're on the Earth vessel Eagle, Samantha said calmly. We found your escape pod and brought you aboard for medical treatment. I'm Captain Reeves. The alien tried to move, then winced in pain. Earth. Humans. His voice rose in panic. You're the forbidden ones. The warborn. Ward stepped closer. What do you mean by that? Who are you? Lieutenant Kiro, Meridian Defense Force. The alien said weakly. You shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be involved. Before he could explain further, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Captain, multiple ships just appeared on our sensors. Kim's voice came over the comm. They're heading straight for us. Fast. Samantha rushed back to the bridge, leaving Ward with their patient. On the screen, she saw 3 vessels, their designs angular and predatory, moving toward the Eagle with clear purpose. They're hailing us, Kim reported. On screen, Samantha ordered. The image changed to show a reptilian face with yellow eyes and scaled skin. The alien wore black armor with red symbols. Human vessel, the alien said, its voice deep and harsh. I am Commander Zex of the Fortune battle cruiser Deathbringer. You have something that belongs to us. Surrender the Meridian soldier immediately, or we will take him by force. Samantha straightened her back. This is Captain Reeves. We rescued an injured survivor from a destroyed vessel. He's under our medical care and protection, according to Earth diplomatic protocols. The Vorchin commander laughed, showing rows of sharp teeth. You have no standing here, human. Your species is quarantined for good reason. Hand over the Meridian, or we will destroy your primitive vessel. The alien cut the transmission. Samantha looked at her bridge crew, seeing fear mixed with determination on their faces. "Battle stations," she ordered. "Whatever happens next, we're not giving up our patient without a fight." Dr. Karen Murphy wiped sweat from her forehead as she worked to save the alien's life. As the top xenobiologist at Earth's Central Medical Facility, she had been rushed to the military base where the Eagle had landed after its narrow escape from the Fortune ships. "His condition is stabilizing," she told Commander Riley, who stood nearby watching. "His biology is fascinating. Different from ours, but with surprising similarities." Lieutenant Kiro lay unconscious on the medical bed, connected to machines that beeped steadily. His golden skin had a slight glow under the bright lights. "Will he survive?" Riley asked. "Yes, I think so. And that's the interesting part." Karen pointed to a scan showing the alien's cellular structure. "Look at this. His body is healing itself at an accelerated rate. I've never seen anything like it." Riley leaned closer to the display. "Are all Meridians like this?" "I don't think so. From what I can tell, he has genetic modifications, engineered healing abilities." Karen's eyes were bright with excitement. "But there's more. While studying his DNA, or their equivalent of it, I found markers that suggest his species shares a distant common ancestor with several Earth species." "That's impossible," Riley said. "I thought so too, but the evidence is right here." Karen showed him another scan. "It's like finding a missing link between evolutionary branches that should never have connected." Their conversation was interrupted when Kiro suddenly opened his eyes. He looked around, more calm than during his first awakening on the Eagle. "Where am I now?" he asked weakly. "Earth," Riley answered. "You're safe. I'm Commander Riley, Earth Defense Force. This is Dr. Murphy. She's been treating your injuries." Kiro attempted to sit up. Karen helped him adjust the bed. "The Fortune ships?" he asked. "The Eagle managed to escape," Riley said. "Captain Reeves used the asteroid field to lose them. Smart tactics." Kiro nodded slowly. "Not surprising. Humans are known for their resourcefulness." Riley pulled a chair closer to the bed. "You called us the warborn before. What did you mean?" The alien was quiet for a moment, as if deciding how much to say. Finally, he spoke. "You deserve to know the truth. Your species is feared throughout the galaxy." "Why?" Karen asked. "We've barely left our solar system." "It's not what you've done. It's what you are." Kiro's violet eyes looked tired but clear. "Long ago, before your recorded history, scientists from an ancient civilization visited Earth. They took genetic samples from your early ancestors. What they discovered caused great concern." Riley crossed his arms. "What did they find?" "That humans evolved on what we call a death world, a planet of exceptional harshness." Kiro gestured weakly with his hand. "Most sentient species evolved in gentle environments where cooperation was the key to survival. But humans, we evolved as prey animals," Karen said suddenly, understanding dawning on her face. "Yes," Kiro confirmed. "Prey animals that became predators through intelligence and adaptability. Your fight-or-flight responses, your ability to ignore pain, your endurance, these traits are unmatched in the galaxy." Riley shook his head. "That can't be why we're quarantined. Many species must have evolved under harsh conditions." "None that achieved space travel," Kiro replied. "The Galactic Council ran simulations after discovering your world. They showed that humans involved in interstellar war would rapidly outperform even veteran spacefaring civilizations." "How?" Karen asked. "Your species learns from conflict and grows stronger. The rest of us just die." Kiro's voice was solemn. "You call it adaptation. We call it terrifying." Riley was silent, processing this information. "And now we're caught between two sides of an alien war." "It's worse than that," Kiro said. "Both the Vorchan and Meridian leadership want humans on their side. The Vorchan would use you as frontline shock troops. My people would use your adaptability to develop new weapons and tactics. And the Council? Karen asked. They fear that once humans enter the galactic stage through war, nothing will ever be the same again. Kiro looked directly at Riley. They may try to neutralize your world rather than let that happen. Riley's communicator beeped. He answered it, listened for a moment, then turned back to Kiro with a grim expression. It seems we don't have much time to prepare. The Vorchen have just attacked our Martian colony. President Bennett stood at the head of the emergency meeting table, her face grim as she looked at the holographic display showing the damage to the Mars colony. 23 dead, hundreds injured, and vital life support systems damaged by the Vorchen attack. They hit us without warning, General Frank Diaz said, his voice tight with anger. Simple survey outposts with no weapons. This was a massacre. The room was filled with military leaders and government officials, all watching footage of the alien ships firing on the defenseless colony domes. What are our options? President Bennett asked. Admiral Laura Patel, head of the Space Command, stood up. Our fleet is limited, Madam President. We have 27 combat-capable ships, but they were designed for conflicts with other human vessels, not alien technology. General Diaz slammed his fist on the table. We need to strike back immediately. Show these Vorchen we won't be bullied. And start a war we can't win. Admiral Patel countered. We need to be smart about this. The door opened, and Ambassador Lyra hurried in, her blue skin pale with stress. I just received word of the attack. Please, you must not retaliate. President Bennett's eyes narrowed. They attacked our colony, killed our people. Why shouldn't we respond? Because that's exactly what they want, Lyra explained. The Vorchen are testing you, provoking you. If humans enter this war, it will escalate beyond anything the galaxy has seen. General Diaz laughed bitterly. You've been telling us how dangerous we are. Maybe it's time to show these Vorchen you were right. Before Lyra could respond, a young officer entered the room. Madam President, we're receiving a transmission from another alien vessel. They say they represent the Meridian Alliance. President Bennett nodded. Put it through. The main screen changed to show a golden-skinned alien with elegant features, similar to Lieutenant Kiro, but with elaborate decorations on his face. Greetings, leaders of Earth. I am High Commander Valen of the Meridian Alliance. We offer our deepest sympathies for the cowardly Vorchen attack on your colony. What do you want, Commander? President Bennett asked directly. To offer an alliance. The Vorchen have violated your sovereignty. They will not stop with one attack. Join with us, and we will provide technology and protection. Together, we can end their aggression. General Diaz leaned forward. What kind of technology? Valen smiled. Weapons beyond your current capabilities. Defensive systems for your planets. Faster than light travel. Ambassador Lyra stepped in front of the screen. President Bennett, the Galactic Council strongly advises against any such alliance. Both sides merely wish to use human potential for their own gain. The Meridian commander's expression hardened at the sight of Lyra. The Council kept humanity isolated and vulnerable. Now they ask you to remain defenseless while your people are killed. Is that what you want? The room fell silent as all eyes turned to President Bennett. She stood straight, her decision clear in her eyes. We will consider all options, including your offer, Commander Valen. But Earth will make its own decisions based on our interests, not the Council's fears or your war strategies. After the transmission ended, an aide approached with an urgent message. Madam President, the Galactic Council has called for an emergency session. They've invited Earth representatives to attend for the first time in history. Ambassador Lyra looked surprised. This is unprecedented. The Council must be truly concerned. As they discussed the invitation, another emergency call came through. Admiral Patel answered it, her face growing more serious by the second. Madam President, she said after ending the call. The U.S. Defiant was on patrol near Neptune when they detected a large Vorchen fleet entering our solar system. Captain Joe Collins reports they appear to be positioning for a major attack on Earth. How many ships? General Diaz asked. At least 50, sir. Far more than we can handle. President Bennett took a deep breath. Order all available ships to defensive positions. Evacuate coastal cities as a precaution. The Defiant is requesting permission to engage. To buy us time, Admiral Patel added. That's suicide, Lyra whispered. General Diaz looked at the tactical display. Maybe, but without delaying action, those ships will reach Earth before we can prepare. President Bennett closed her eyes briefly, then gave the order. Tell Captain Collins to do what he can. And may God help us all. Hours later, stunning news arrived. The Defiant hadn't just survived. It had damaged 3 Fortune vessels and forced the others to regroup. Captain Collins had used Earth's asteroid belt in ways the aliens had never seen before, turning space debris into weapons. President Bennett led the small Earth delegation through the massive entrance of the Galactic Council headquarters. The space station orbited a star near Proxima Centauri, the closest stellar neighbor to Earth's sun. They had traveled here in Lyra's diplomatic vessel, the journey taking only hours thanks to technology humans had only dreamed about until now. Ambassador William Hayes walked beside the president, trying to hide his awe at the station's size and beauty. Curved walls of shimmering material rose hundreds of meters overhead. Light played through crystal-like structures, creating rainbows across the polished floor. Remember, Lyra whispered to them, many species here have never seen a human before. Some will be afraid. Others will be curious. A few may be hostile. As they entered the main chamber, all conversation stopped. Representatives from 47 different species turned to stare at the humans. Some had multiple eyes, others had no visible eyes at all. They ranged from small, insect-like beings to massive creatures that towered over the humans. They're so different, Hayes whispered. I never imagined. Yet most share common ancestors millions of years ago, Lyra explained. Evolution took different paths on different worlds. A tall, slender alien with purple skin and 4 arms approached the center of the chamber. Symbols of office hung from its neck. I am Supreme Counselor Xenta, it announced in a melodic voice that echoed through the room. For 10,000 years, we have maintained peace through balance. Humans upset that balance. President Bennett stepped forward. We did not ask to be drawn into your war. The Vorchin attacked our colony without provocation. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Sente raised all 4 hands for quiet. Historical records show that predator species like yours have caused extinction-level wars when introduced to galactic politics, the counselor stated. The quarantine was established for the safety of all. Hayes moved to stand beside President Bennett. With respect, Counselor, you made decisions about our species without our knowledge or consent. You kept us isolated based on simulations and assumptions. A reptilian delegate hissed from across the chamber. Humans are dangerous. The Defiant vessel destroyed 3 Fortune warships with primitive technology. Imagine what they would do with advanced weapons. We defended ourselves, President Bennett replied firmly. As is our right. Another alien, this one floating in a tank of green liquid, spoke through a translator device. The Council has historical data on 17 aggressive species that gained space travel. 15 caused major wars within a decade. 2 destroyed themselves before reaching other stars. And how many were contacted peacefully? Hayes asked. How many were offered friendship instead of fear? Silence answered his question. Hayes moved to the center of the chamber, activating a small projector he had brought. Images appeared in the air. Earth's art, music, literature, and scientific achievements. We evolved through conflict, yes, he acknowledged. But we've spent our history trying to overcome it. We've created beauty alongside our weapons. We've explored our world and reached for the stars not just to conquer, but to understand. As he spoke, the images changed to show Earth's cities, farms, and natural wonders. Children playing. People of different races working together. Judge us by what we've built, Not just what you fear we might destroy, Hayes concluded. The chamber had grown quiet, many delegates watching the images with apparent interest. Then an alarm sounded, and a holographic display appeared at the center of the room. "Emergency alert," announced an automated voice. "Both Vorchan and Meridian battle fleets have altered course. They are converging on Earth's solar system." The chamber erupted in chaos. Species that had been sitting quietly now shouted and gestured wildly. "Silence," commanded Senta. "This is what we feared. Both sides seek to claim human military potential." An insectoid delegate rose on thin legs. "We must enforce the quarantine. Neutralize the human world before either side can use them." "Neutralize?" President Bennett's voice cut through the noise. "You mean destroy Earth?" "It would be regrettable but necessary," the insectoid replied coldly. "For galactic stability." Hayes stood tall, facing the council. "You kept us in the dark and created this situation. Now we'll solve it our way." President Bennett nodded in agreement. "Earth will defend itself against the Vorchan, the Meridian, or anyone else who threatens us, including this council." As the humans turned to leave, Senta called after them. "What do you intend to do?" President Bennett paused at the doorway. "What humans have always done when faced with impossible odds. Adapt and overcome." Admiral Laura Patel stood on the bridge of the Earth flagship Freedom, watching the tactical display with intense focus. Earth's combined fleet of 35 ships formed a defensive line between Earth and the approaching alien armadas. Each dot on the screen represented a vessel filled with brave men and women ready to protect their home. "Status report," she ordered. "Vorchan fleet approaching from Sector 4, 73 ships," reported her tactical officer. "Meridian fleet approaching from Sector 9, 68 ships. Both will be in weapons range within 2 hours." Patel nodded calmly, though she knew the odds they faced. Earth ships were smaller, slower, and less powerful than the alien vessels, but they had advantages the aliens didn't expect. "Begin Operation Slingshot," she commanded. "All ships to their assigned positions." In the medical lab aboard the Freedom, Dr. Ward worked alongside Lieutenant Kiro, who had volunteered to help Earth despite his injuries. They bent over communication equipment, making final adjustments. "This should allow us to pierce their jamming technology," Ward explained to the Admiral via video link. "We can broadcast directly to their soldiers, show them what their leaders are hiding." Kiro nodded. "Many in both fleets don't understand why they're fighting. This war began because of greed, not necessity." Admiral Patel turned to her communications officer. "Is President Bennett ready?" "Yes, Mom. Her message is prepared and standing by." "Then we proceed as planned. All ships maintain defensive positions. Do not fire unless fired upon." As the alien fleets approached, a tense silence fell over Earth's defenders. They were vastly outnumbered, but surrender was not an option. In the depths of space near Jupiter, Captain Joe Collins and the U.S. Defiant led a small group of ships on a different mission. Using the tactics that had proven successful before, they stayed hidden among the moons and rings of the gas giant. "All teams in position?" Collins asked. "Yes, sir," his first officer confirmed. "Ready on your command." Collins studied the approaching Vorchan fleet. "Begin Phase 1. Silent running until we reach the target." The Defiant and 5 other ships slipped away from their hiding places, engines dampened to avoid detection. Their target, the massive command ship, the center of the Vorchan fleet. Back at Earth, Admiral Patel watched as the alien fleets came into range. "Prepare for contact. Activate Dr. Ward's transmitter." Across both enemy fleets, confusion spread as Earth's broadcast bypassed their security systems. On every ship, screens activated without permission. President Bennett's face appeared, speaking clearly and directly. "People of the Vorchan Empire and Meridian Alliance, I am Olivia Bennett, President of United Earth. Your leaders have brought you to our home to fight a war based on lies. We have proof." The broadcast shifted to show documents recovered by Captain Collins on a previous mission. Financial records, secret communications, and military orders scrolled across alien screens. Evidence showed that corrupt officials from both governments had engineered the conflict for profit and power. This war was created by those who benefit from your suffering. President Bennett continued. Earth chooses not to be part of this deception. We stand ready to defend our home, but we would rather find peace. In the Vorchin command ship, Captain Collins and his team completed their daring mission. They captured the ship's bridge and secured vital intelligence confirming everything in Bennett's message. Send the final proof, Collins ordered. His communications officer transmitted images directly from the Vorchin command center, showing the conspiracy laid bare in the ship's own records. Throughout both fleets, ships began breaking formation. Some commanders ordered weapons power down. Others maintained attack positions but hesitated to advance. Admiral Patel watched the changing patterns on her display. It's working, she said quietly. A transmission came through from the largest Meridian vessel. This is High Commander Valen. We request a ceasefire and direct communication with Earth leadership. Minutes later, a similar message arrived from the remaining Vorchin command structure. Patel allowed herself a small smile. Open channels to both. Inform President Bennett that her strategy worked. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council watched in stunned silence. What they had feared most, human involvement in the war, had instead brought the first real chance for peace. They think differently, Lyra explained to the shocked council members. Where we see inevitable conflict, they see potential solutions no one has tried. The Supreme Counselor Xenta spoke softly. Perhaps we have much to learn from these humans after all. 3 months after first contact, representatives from Earth, the Vorchin Empire, and the Meridian Alliance gathered in the Grand Meeting Hall of the Galactic Council Station. The room was filled with beings from across the galaxy, all watching as history unfolded before them. President Bennett stood at the center table with High Commander Valen of the Meridian and Acting Warlord Kraz of the Vorchin. Each leader held a silver pen designed specifically for this moment. With these signatures, President Bennett said, we end a conflict that threatened to consume countless lives across the galaxy. One by one, they signed the document. The Peace of Sol, it was called, named after Earth's sun as a recognition of humanity's role in creating it. The treaty included unprecedented requirements for transparency in government and military activities, as well as demilitarized zones between the territories of both powers. Ambassador Hayes had spent weeks crafting these provisions, drawing on Earth's long history of peace treaties. Many alien diplomats had been shocked by his suggestions at first, calling them naive or impossible to enforce. But that's the point, Hayes had explained. Peace isn't maintained by perfect enforcement. It's built on creating systems where peace becomes more advantageous than war. As the ceremony concluded, Supreme Counselor Xenta approached the podium. The chamber fell silent. For 10,000 years, the Galactic Council has worked to maintain balance among the stars. Today, we acknowledge that our methods have not always been wise. Xenta turned to face the human delegation. Earth's quarantine status is hereby lifted. We offer full membership rights to humanity among the galactic community. Applause filled the chamber, though some delegates remained silent, still wary of human involvement in galactic affairs. Xenta raised all 4 hands for quiet. However, a special provision has been added to Earth's membership. In times of galactic conflict, Earth will serve as neutral mediator rather than combatant. President Bennett stepped forward to address the council. We accept these terms. You feared we would become the galaxy's greatest warriors. Instead, we'll strive to be its most dedicated peacekeepers. Later that day, plans were announced for a new galactic security force. Ships with mixed species crews tasked with maintaining the peace. General Diaz would oversee the training program, teaching aliens and humans to work together. It won't be easy, he told President Bennett as they watched the new recruits arriving. Some of these species have been enemies for centuries. If humans can overcome our violent past, she replied, so can they. Ambassador Hayes was appointed as Earth's permanent representative to the Council, a position he accepted with both pride and humility. "We have much to learn," he said in his acceptance speech, "and much to share." As the formalities ended and the delegates dispersed, Commander Riley found Ambassador Lyra on the observation deck of the station. They stood side by side, watching ships from dozens of worlds arriving for the upcoming diplomatic summit. "I remember when you first arrived at our station," Riley said. "You were so worried about humans getting involved in the war." Lyra nodded. The Council had run thousands of simulations. In every scenario, human involvement led to more death, more destruction, never to peace. "What was missing from your simulations?" "Creativity, compassion, the ability to see beyond the patterns of the past." Lyra turned to face him. "You were right to be afraid of us," Riley admitted, "but for the wrong reasons. We don't want to conquer the stars. We just want to understand them." Lyra's expression softened. "That's precisely what makes your species so terrifying, and so necessary." Below them, the first class of the new Galactic Security Force marched in formation. Humans alongside Fortune, Meridian, Telari, and a dozen other species, all wearing the same uniform. "Will it last?" Riley asked, watching them. "I don't know," Lyra admitted. "Peace is never guaranteed." "No," Riley agreed, "but it's always worth fighting for." As they turned to leave, a message arrived for Commander Riley. Earth was beginning construction on its first faster-than-light ship, designed with technology shared by their new allies. They wanted him to command it. The ship's name was already decided: Hope. Riley smiled as he read the message. Humanity's journey among the stars was just beginning, and despite everything, he was optimistic about where it might lead. Not bad, he thought, for a species everyone wanted to keep out of the war.